We're tackling one of the most popular questions that I get from people thinking about relocating and moving to Vancouver Island. And that is, what is it really like to live there? You've probably seen pictures, you've probably seen videos on the internet and on TV, and maybe you've even visited on occasion on vacation. The beautiful beaches, the lush forests, the charming towns that we have here, and all of that is true. But there are also a few things that no one really tells you and that you won't really know or find out until you live here, you sink in, you give it some time, and you get to experience it. So before you pack up your life and head for the ferry, let's chat. So today I'm going to walk you through the good, the surprising, and the realistic parts of island life, from community size to career options to things that you just can't find out by researching or Google searching. So stick around to the end because I'll also share what oftentimes keeps people here for good once they arrive. Let's start our conversation with something that's huge, and that is simply scale. Life on Vancouver Island is just smaller. We're a large island. We're 460 kilometers long, but we don't have massive cities. For example, Nanaimo has just around 100,000 residents. The city of Victoria, the provincial capital, only has about 92,000 people living within city limits. Now, if you look at the greater Victoria region and take into account all the suburbs, it is closer to 400,000. And beyond that, then we really start looking into smaller cities, smaller towns. There are larger towns like Courtenay, Duncan, Parksville, and then we get into some smaller towns, Port Alberni, Ladysmith. Each of them have their own vibe, but are far smaller than what you might be used to if you're coming from the Lower Mainland, Toronto, or Alberta. In fact, if we're talking about Alberta, both Calgary and Edmonton respectively have more in population in each of those cities than all of what is on Vancouver Island. We are smaller in population. Now, this smaller scale has perks like less traffic, shorter commutes, and strong senses of community within these different areas, but it also means you won't find that big city buzz. The skylines are way more minimal in comparison. There is no subway system. Public transit can be in different areas, but is not developed to the same degree. There are no massive stadiums. Large touring musicians and artists and concerts, they typically don't come to the Vancouver Island. Usually they'll be in Vancouver, and we can make the trip over there for those occasions. I will say that the caveat to that is Sunfest in the Cowichan Valley here every summer is amazing, and we do get top tier country music artists. There is no 24/7 nightlife. Now, for a lot of people, that's just fine, and that's even a good thing. That's a benefit. But for others, it can be a deal breaker, and it can take some adjustment. Next up, let's address the job market. And this one can surprise a lot of people. Vancouver Island's economy, it is robust, and it's built on industries but fewer industries. You'll find jobs in healthcare, in government, in education, and in construction especially. There's a lot of opportunities. Also in tourism. And there are growing opportunities also in tech and remote work. But those remote work opportunities really are growing as a society. Not so much Vancouver Island specific, but it is easier now more so than ever to find that remote work. But in general, there are fewer jobs here because there are fewer businesses here and fewer people here. And competition for those jobs in specific industries can be steep, especially if it's in something that's like media or marketing. So if you're moving here without a job that's already lined up, my input is that it would be a good idea to do your research. Put some feelers out there within your specific industry to see what it's like in your job market before making the move over here. But for entrepreneurs, for small business owners, the island really can be a dream and be very lucrative, and you can be very successful. Trades are often an easy hire here and are in demand, and there's a lot of room to grow your small home-based business here on the island. Now, here's another thing that you might not have been told and that you might not know before moving here to Vancouver Island. And that is, there is no IKEA. Are you going to be okay with that? Do you really need that Billy bookcase? You might, but it'll involve you hopping on a ferry and driving over to IKEA in Vancouver, loading up and coming back. Another option, and one that's even better than walking through the maze at IKEA trying to track down what you're trying to find is just ordering it online and paying for delivery. It's an option, it works. And there are actually services here. There's one service here, you can hire them. They make weekly trips over to Vancouver in their minivan, and you just say, pick this up from IKEA for me, and they pick it up for a fee and bring it back to the island, and you pick it up. So there are solutions. So that being said, you'll find most other large chains here on the island. There's Home Depot, Canadian Tire, Walmart, Costco, The Brick, London Drugs, and so on. You'll find them typically in the larger centers like Victoria, then Nanaimo, then Courtenay, and some in Campbell. Really, all of the basics are covered. And beyond the big brands, the big box stores, what really stands out here are local businesses, furniture makers, antique shops, boutique decor stores. There's a strong culture of shop local. So if you're into craftsmanship, secondhand finds, or supporting small businesses, you're going to love it here. There are plenty of options. Now, another thing that perhaps no one has told you, and we're going to get a little bit more philosophical here, is that living on the island changes how you think about distance, about travel, and about planning. To get to the mainland, you're either going to be catching that ferry, which can take typically around 2 hours, can be 2.5 hours, could be take a little bit longer. And that's just the travel time. So you got to get in line and wait, and then you got to unload. So it's really going to be 3 to 4 hours if you're on the ferry. Or you can fly, which is way, way faster. You can be there in 15 minutes. It just costs $120 a ticket, more or less. Taking this into account, this kind of creates an island mentality where you start to think twice about leaving, because there's cost involved, but also there's hassle involved. And what this does is it makes spur of the moment trips over to Vancouver not just be like, I'm going over for the afternoon, or I want to go to this restaurant, let's go do it. It typically changes those type of desires into weekend trips, not day trips. Day trips are possible, they'll just feel like a lot of travel. And while that might sound inconvenient, it becomes a way of life. You do get used to it. And what happens when you've adjusted to this island life, is most people say, I can't imagine living anywhere else. And that's the big takeaway. You gain access to year-round natural beauty. In the middle of winter, you can go for a hike and just wear a light jacket. You can go for ocean walks, forest hikes, mountain biking, kayaking, surfing, skiing, snowboarding, kite surfing, you name it, it's here. The climate is one of the mildest in Canada. Winters are shorter, they are wet, they are damp. Summers are warm, but not scorching. There's less hustle. There's more balance, in my opinion. Even with fewer conveniences here on the island and the occasional ferry delay, the lifestyle here is incredibly rich. You'll wake up to the songs of birds rather than sirens. You'll wave to your neighbors. Your children will be able to ride their bikes outside on the street and in nature. There's something grounding about life here on Vancouver Island that's hard to describe until you really experience it. So what no one tells you before moving to Vancouver Island is, yes, it's smaller. Yes, there are trade-offs. But once you get here, once you settle in, there's a good chance that you won't want to leave. So if you're thinking about making the move, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life insights on living right here on Vancouver Island, and I'll see you guys in the next one.